The movie begins, and a classic pre-flight rush unfolds before us. Two stewardesses finish their preparations, and passengers begin to enter the cabin. Among them are newlyweds on their honeymoon. Next we meet another couple, Brad and Pia. They are flying with friends on vacation, but there is one nuance. They have already broken up, but tactfully keep quiet about it in the presence of the company. The atmosphere between them is tense. Meanwhile, a respectable man in a suit appears in the salon. He hides his briefcase at his feet, but the stewardess immediately stops him and urges him to put it on the top shelf. And lastly, we meet two more passengers. A girl is talking to a guy on a video link, and next to her sits a guy who apparently considers himself the main showman of the flight. He immediately starts entertaining his neighbor with stories about his grand plans. Meanwhile, Liz, who never misses an opportunity to brag, enthusiastically tells her neighbor about her wedding trip. She shows off the gorgeous photos, the sparkling ring, and her confidence that the honeymoon will be the best of her life. The neighbor, having heard enough, decides she'd rather sit in the baggage compartment than put up with it any longer. Liz doesn't give up and turns to the girl on her right, but she doesn't like the braggers either. It's business as usual, with the flight attendants serving drinks and discussing the passengers. But suddenly, there is a bit of turbulence. The airplane starts to shake, but in a second everything ends.
Everione exhales exceptseman in the suite.
He suddenly begins to choke, grabbing his throat. The situation suddenly becomes serious. A passenger, who turns out to be a doctor, comes to his aid. His condition begins to deteriorate. Brad does everything possible: heart massage, artificial respiration, resuscitation, but to no avail.
The man stops breathing.
The crew informs the pilots that there is a corpse on board. The decision is made quickly. Passengers are transferred from first class to economy class, and the dead businessman gets his last upgrade, a seat in first class. While the deceased's body is being strapped down in first class, a drama of its own is unfolding in economy. A young wife declares to her husband that she will not touch him after CPR. In response, the man kisses her, and the woman leaves for the restroom in a rage. Meanwhile, another female passenger secludes herself in the restroom with a pregnancy test. Suddenly, the plane starts acting like it has decided to play a roller coaster. The flight attendant and the doctor are the first to notice the warning signs. The coffee spilled on the floor begins to evaporate rapidly, and the plastic bottle at the doctor's side shrinks as if sucked up by an invisible vacuum. But there is no need to ponder this for long. The airplane falls sharply downward. In the restroom, the girl flies up to the ceiling. Her pregnancy test flies off in an unknown direction. Chaos ensues in the cabin. Passengers jump out of their seats, oxygen masks fall from the ceiling. People in a panic try to put them on. In the cockpit, one of the pilots manages to put on the mask, but the other one loses consciousness right behind the steering wheel. The doctor rushes to the aid of the girl whose mask doesn't work. He gives her his, then takes a new one, but then he notices another passenger fainting. He rushes between them, dispensing oxygen like an experienced emergency organizer at 10,000 meters.
Suddenly everything calms down.
The plane stabilizes. The co-pilot comes to his senses and announces that the situation is under control. However, the passengers after such turbulence are clearly not in a hurry to believe him. The stewardess finally reaches the restroom, where she finds an unconscious passenger with a pregnancy test in her hands. She carefully places the mask on her and mentally prepares herself for the many surprises this flight will bring. Meanwhile, in search of entertainment, the thief decides to check what valuable things the dead man left behind. He is not bothered by the fact that when he tears an expensive watch from the dead man's hand, a piece of flesh is torn off along with it. Deciding to immortalize this moment, the guy takes out his phone and starts shooting a video. But the dead man doesn't share his enthusiasm. It is not known what exactly he saw, but the thief jumps back and starts screaming. In the cockpit, the pilots try to contact air traffic control, but there's only noise and interference on the other side. And the stewardess suddenly freezes at the window, looking at the Boeing flying very close by. She feels that something is wrong. The plane flew too close. But the weirdness doesn't end there. Everyone notices that the guy with the phones is missing.
Our search begins.
Looking into the first class, they find that not only the thief has disappeared, but also the body of the man himself. Meanwhile, the girl secludes herself in the restroom again to retake a pregnancy test. But this time the test proves to be the least of her problems. A hand suddenly sticks out of the floor and grabs her legs with a dead grip. The doctor, overhearing the stewardess talking about the missing body, tells her that he saw the dead man on TV. They decide to open the missing man's luggage. Opening the suitcase, they discover inside a doll. Ordinary at first glance, but the girl instantly recognizes it and immediately turns grim. She claims it's a death doll. According to her, if a person dies suddenly, his soul cannot travel to the afterlife until he renounces everything that binds him to life. And only then can the doll escort him to where he belongs. So, simply put, this man is not going away. Meanwhile, the stewardess decides to look in the luggage compartment and find his things. After all, it's one thing to fly with a dead man on board. It's quite another when that dead man hasn't decided where he's going yet. She opens the bag and a hand comes out. The girl jerks to the side, but it doesn't save her. The pilot is next. The second flight attendant also sees the hand reaching for her and moves farther away. Passengers find her and ask if she's okay, but no, she's not okay. Everyone runs away, but the informal woman stays and stares intently into a dark corner. From there, she herself emerges. She walks over to her copy and gives her a hug. Meanwhile, the others find the pilot and realize things are bad. They also find the girl in the restroom as well. Brad goes into the cabin and walks back out with a look of horror on his face. The others run inside and he picks up his beloved and takes her inside with him. They see all the passengers. And themselves. They are all sitting in the same seats, but their hearts are no longer beating. They see what really happened. When the depressurization happened, all of them couldn't escape. Including the pilot, all the staff and all the passengers. And they're all just spirits clinging to their lives. The TV turns on and they see the news reporting that their plane has stopped communicating and a passing Boeing has detected no life on board. They all suffocated due to malfunctioning oxygen masks. Their plane is going on autopilot, and as soon as it runs out of fuel, it will crash into the Pacific Ocean. Brad and Pia accept their fate and she asks him not to let her go. At the end we see that the girl who was flying on a wedding trip is still on the plane and can't accept her fate, but Hans find her too.
This is where the movie ends.
Write your opinion about it in the comments and give it a rating from 1 to 10. Don't forget to rate our video by liking and subscribing, it's the best support for us. And also click on the bell to watch new videos first.